A simple hoodie, a gleaming luxury showroom, and a moment that dropped jaws. What unfolds when a car dealership manager sizes up a customer, unaware he's speaking to the secret owner himself? Daryl guided his vehicle into the parking area of Prestige Motors, the premier dealership he'd recently acquired in the sun-drenched city of Scottsdale, Arizona. The desert heat distorted the view above the polished, high-end cars displayed at the front, their immaculate finishes catching the late afternoon sun. He found an unmarked spot at the rear for his modest SUV and stepped out, pausing to survey the dealership's facade. His attire wasn't designed to draw attention. Quite the contrary. A straightforward gray hooded sweatshirt, slightly worn denim, and casual sneakers comprised his chosen look for the day. This choice of casual wear was deliberate. He aimed to witness the dealership's genuine operational style, to see how things functioned when the new boss wasn't recognized. As he approached the entrance, he noticed a small cluster of staff members inside, engaged in conversation near the reception desk. The faint sound of laughter and easy chat drifted through the glass entryway. Daryl opened the door and stepped inside. The climate-controlled showroom offered a stark contrast to the external heat, filled with the subtle aroma of fine leather and fresh, detailing wax. Rows of flawless automobiles shimmered beneath the bright, overhead illumination. The chatter subsided as he entered. Daryl caught the quick glances exchanged among the employees, their eyes flicking towards his hoodie and shoes. He sensed the subtle shift in atmosphere, the kind that communicated more than words. Yet, he wasn't there to make premature judgments. He was there to observe. Then, from the far side of the showroom, she appeared. Susan. Susan was a woman in her middle years with sharp features and an equally piercing gaze. Her precisely tailored jacket and high heels suggested authority, and the clipboard tucked beneath her arm added an air of focused purpose. She advanced directly towards him, her heels making distinct clicks on the polished flooring. Her expression initially registered as courteous, but a tension in her smile didn't escape Daryl's notice. "Excuse me," Susan began, her voice cool and precise. "May I assist you with something?" Daryl offered a relaxed smile. "Just browse for now," he stated casually, indicating the vehicles. Susan's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing him from head to foot. Her polite facade shifted almost imperceptibly, replaced by a less welcoming demeanor. "Are you looking to purchase a car?" she inquired, her tone carrying a hint of skepticism. Daryl nodded, maintaining his smile. "Something along those lines." Susan's lips compressed. "Well, we serve a very specific clientele here. Most of our inventory requires prior qualification. Perhaps I could suggest." Before she could complete her sentence, another employee called out, "Hey, Susan, the delivery is here." Her focus momentarily shifted, but her gaze quickly returned to Daryl, as if ensuring he remained within sight. Daryl raised an eyebrow, but kept his voice light. "You're assuming I don't meet the criteria?" The query seemed to surprise her, though only briefly. She quickly regained her composure, her posture stiffening. "I'm merely trying to save you time," she responded with a strained smile. "These automobiles commence at six-figure price points. Perhaps I could guide you towards." Daryl's expression remained unchanged, but inwardly, he noted her choice of words. His calm disposition was undisturbed, yet the subtle sting of her prejudgment was undeniable. The moment lingered, an unspoken tension filling the space as Susan waited expectantly. Daryl glanced around the showroom, feigning admiration for a nearby car, a sleek silver coupe with an aggressive design. His fingers lightly touched the door handle, and he looked back at Susan. "Sharp car," he commented simply. Her brows furrowed slightly, but she managed another strained smile. "It is. Perhaps when you're prepared for a serious discussion, we can arrange an appointment. For now, I must request that you refrain from touching the vehicles." Daryl stood for a moment, considering her words before stepping back from the car. He nodded once, hands in his pockets, and motioned for her to continue. "All right, let's hear it. What would your recommendation be for someone like me?" Susan blinked, taken aback by his directness. But before she could reply, Daryl added, "If you believe you understand my needs, I'm ready to listen." Her polite exterior cracked just enough to reveal her underlying impatience. Perhaps something more budget-friendly. I could provide directions to a dealership specializing in pre-owned vehicles. Darryl smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. He'd witnessed enough. That's quite the presumption, he said softly. The statement hung in the air, and for a brief instant, Susan hesitated. Then, recovering her composure, she straightened her stance. I'll return with a selection of choices, she stated, walking away quickly. Darryl watched her depart, his expression inscrutable. He turned back to the silver coupe, his reflection visible in its polished surface. This was shaping up to be an eventful day. Darryl remained in the center of the showroom, hands still in his pockets, his gaze sweeping over the array of vehicles. He wasn't prone to jumping to conclusions, but Susan's dismissive attitude was difficult to overlook. Around him, the staff had resumed their conversations, though he caught occasional glances in his direction. It was the sort of scrutiny he'd grown accustomed to over time, the silent assessment, the coded looks. Susan reappeared a moment later, her clipboard held tightly, like a shield. Her brisk pace and forced smile conveyed her irritation. All right, she announced, stopping a few feet from him. I've compiled some options that might be more appropriate for your situation. Darryl inclined his head slightly. My situation? Yes, Susan confirmed, her tone clipped. She handed him a printout featuring used vehicles, each with detailed descriptions and price tags significantly lower than the dealership's usual inventory. These are more accessible models. Dependable, economical, and, well, practical. Darryl accepted the list without comment, his eyes scanning the page. A used sedan, an older SUV, a compact hybrid. His lips curved in faint amusement, but he quickly masked it, folding the paper and placing it in his pocket. Appreciate the effort, he said, his voice even. Susan seemed momentarily thrown by his response, but she quickly recovered, her hands resting on her hips. Look, she began, lowering her voice as if sharing confidential information. I'm simply trying to be realistic. Prestige Motors isn't suitable for everyone. I wouldn't want to waste your time. Darryl met her gaze, his expression calm but unwavering. And what exactly leads you to believe I'm not your intended client? Susan paused, but only for a second. I've been in this business for a long time, she stated. I can recognize when someone is out of their league. Out of their league? Darryl repeated, his voice neutral, almost reflective. Interesting. A flicker of uncertainty appeared in Susan's eyes, but she persisted. I'm just being truthful. It's better to be upfront than for someone to leave disappointed. Darryl let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head gently. Truthful, huh? I appreciate honesty. How about this? You let me speak to the owner. Do you think we can arrange that? Susan's eyebrows shot up. For the first time, she appeared genuinely surprised. The owner? That's correct, Darryl affirmed, his tone light, almost conversational. I'd like to have a discussion with them. Susan's lips twisted in a strained semblance of a smile. Well, that's not feasible today. The owner doesn't just show up for casual visits. They're a very busy individual. I'm sure they are, Darryl said, nodding slightly. But perhaps you could give them a call? Let them know I'm here. I think they'd want to meet me. Susan's smile tightened further. Her patience was wearing thin, and it was evident. Look, sir, I'm endeavoring to be as polite as possible, but this is becoming unreasonable. I have other customers requiring attention. If you are serious about purchasing a vehicle, we can arrange a consultation with one of our sales professionals. Otherwise what? Darryl prompted, his tone still calm, though an undeniable edge had crept in. Susan's eyes narrowed, her frustration boiling over. Otherwise, I will have to request that you leave. The words hung in the air, laden with consequence. Darryl stood still, his gaze fixed on hers for a moment. The entire showroom seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Darryl reached into his pocket and retrieved his phone. All right, he said, scrolling through his contacts. I'll make the call myself. Susan blinked, her brow furrowing in confusion. What are you doing? Just contacting the owner, Darryl replied, lifting the phone to his ear. Shouldn't take long. Susan's confidence wavered, her irritation giving way to bewilderment. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words emerged. Around them, several employees had paused their activities, their attention drawn to the unfolding scene. Daryl held up a finger, signaling a brief pause, then turned slightly away, speaking into the phone. "Yeah, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine. Just a slight misunderstanding. Could you let them know I'm here?" He ended the call and returned the phone to his pocket, turning back to Susan. "They'll be arriving shortly," he stated simply. Susan stared at him, her mouth slightly agape. Who did you just call?" Daryl didn't answer immediately. Instead, he surveyed the showroom, his gaze resting on the staff who were now watching intently. "Guess we'll find out," he said, his tone almost playful. The tension in the room was palpable, its weight pressing down on everyone present. Susan shifted uncomfortably, her composure starting to unravel. Minutes passed, yet the room felt frozen in time. Susan busied herself with her clipboard, though her movements were rigid and deliberate, betraying her unease. Daryl, in contrast, stood relaxed beside one of the luxury SUVs, his calm demeanor only amplifying the tension. The few employees scattered throughout the showroom whispered amongst themselves, stealing glances at the developing situation. It was clear everyone was anticipating something or someone. The sound of the main entrance doors opening broke the silence. A sharply dressed man in a navy suit entered, his polished shoes making quiet clicks on the tiled floor. His expression was serious yet welcoming, and his eyes immediately located Daryl. "Mr. Carter," the man said with a broad smile, extending his hand as he approached. "It's excellent to see you." Daryl returned the handshake with a firm grip, a slight smile forming at the corners of his lips. "Thanks for coming, Alex. I appreciate it." The room collectively stiffened. Susan's clipboard nearly slipped from her grasp as her eyes darted between Daryl and Alex, the dealership's regional director. Her confusion rapidly transformed into palpable alarm. "Wait. Mr. Carter," she echoed, her voice uncertain. Alex turned to her, his friendly manner shifting to something more professional, almost abrupt. "Susan, I see you've already met Mr. Carter." Susan blinked, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the correct words. I wasn't aware." "You weren't aware he's the new owner of this dealership," Alex finished for her, his tone sharp. He glanced at Daryl, an apologetic look on his face. "I trust this wasn't the welcome you envisioned." Daryl raised a hand, stopping him. "It's quite all right, Alex. I believe Susan, and I simply started off on the wrong foot." His voice was calm, but there was a gravitas to his words that held everyone in the room captive. Susan's face turned ashen, and she took a step back, clutching her clipboard to her chest like a lifeline. I am so terribly sorry," she stammered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't realize." "You didn't realize what?" Daryl asked, his tone still gentle but firm. "That I could afford a place like this? That someone who looks like me might actually belong here?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed utterly lost. "I didn't mean—" Daryl held up a hand, interrupting her. "It's genuinely fine, Susan." He stepped closer, his voice lowering just enough to make everyone lean in. "But let me pose a question. If I hadn't been the owner, would your treatment of me have been different? Would you have afforded me the same level of respect you'd give someone who walked in here wearing a suit and tie?" Susan opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The silence was deafening. Daryl nodded, as if her silence confirmed his point. He turned to Alex, his voice carrying a new authority. "Let's assemble everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a discussion about how things are conducted here." The employees filed into the sleek conference room, the atmosphere heavy with tension. The room, designed to impress with its glass walls and modern furniture, felt stifling today. Susan sat near the back, her usual confident demeanor replaced by a nervous stillness. Daryl stood at the head of the table, composed and self-assured, his presence commanding everyone's attention. Alex remained near the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he watched the staff take their seats. The quiet murmur of whispers ceased as Daryl cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping across the group. "Thank you all for gathering on short notice," Daryl began, his tone measured but resolute. For those unfamiliar, my name is Daryl Carter, and as of last month, I am the new owner of Prestige Motors. There were murmurs of surprise from a few employees, their reactions ranging from curiosity to embarrassment. Susan sank lower in her chair, avoiding eye contact. I deliberately came here today dressed casually, Daryl continued, his voice steady. I wanted to observe how this dealership operates when my identity is unknown. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel walking through these doors. He allowed the words to resonate for a moment before proceeding. What I encountered today was disappointing. I was assessed, not based on potential business, but on my appearance. And I'm not here to single anyone out specifically, but we need to address what that reflects about the culture within this dealership. Susan shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushed. Daryl's eyes briefly flicked to her before returning his attention to the group as a whole. This extends beyond just my experience, he stated. It involves every individual who enters through those doors, every customer who doesn't fit a preconceived notion of what a luxury car buyer should look like. One of the younger sales associates tentatively raised his hand. Daryl nodded towards him. Go ahead. Mr. Carter, the man began nervously. I believe most of us strive to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's challenging not to make assumptions. Daryl nodded, his expression thoughtful. I understand that, he said. We all possess biases, whether we acknowledge them or not. But here's the crucial point. Merely trying to be fair isn't sufficient. We must actively challenge those biases. We must cultivate an environment where everyone feels respected, irrespective of their appearance, background, or any other factor. He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. This dealership has established a reputation for excellence, but excellence encompasses more than just the vehicles we sell. It's about the experience we deliver. And from this point forward, that experience will be grounded in respect, inclusivity, and fairness. A ripple of agreement spread through the room, though a few faces remained cautious. Daryl's gaze settled on Susan, who sat motionless, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Susan, he said gently but firmly, I want to offer you an opportunity to speak. Is there anything you wish to say? All eyes turned towards her. She hesitated, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. I made an error, she admitted, her cheeks flushed. I misjudged you, and for that, I am truly apologetic. Daryl nodded, his expression unreadable. Thank you for acknowledging that, he said. I hope this experience serves as a lesson for all of us, not solely for you. Because accountability is where change begins. He turned back to the group. Moving forward, we will be implementing new training initiatives to ensure this dealership embodies the values I uphold. Every customer is deserving of dignified treatment, without exception. If anyone has an objection to that, now is the time to voice it. The room remained silent. The quiet in the conference room was profound, interrupted only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. No one spoke, but the impact of Daryl's words lingered, pressing upon everyone present. Daryl allowed the silence to extend just long enough to make his point before speaking again, his voice calm but decisive. Good, he said. I'm pleased to see we're aligned. Change isn't always comfortable, but it's essential. And this dealership will be a benchmark. He took a step back from the table, his hands resting lightly on its edge as he leaned forward slightly. Let me clarify something. I didn't come here today to cause embarrassment for anyone. I came to understand the kind of culture I've acquired and how we can enhance it. His gaze shifted to Susan, who still sat quietly near the back. Susan, he said, his tone softening just enough to convey he wasn't attacking her. You are an experienced manager, and I'm confident you've worked diligently to reach your position. But today was a moment of realization for you, and for all of us. Susan looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time. I understand, she said, her voice trembling but sincere. I was wrong, and I will do whatever is necessary to correct this. Daryl nodded. I believe in providing second chances, he said simply. But accountability comes first. I will arrange a one-on-one meeting with you to discuss the next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward. He straightened, turning his attention back to the rest of the team. We're not merely selling automobiles here. We are cultivating confidence, building connections, and upholding a standard of excellence. If you are committed to that, I am here to support you completely. There was a murmur of agreement this time, more audible and seemingly genuine. The staff appeared to relax, the initial tension giving way to a sense of renewed dedication. Even Alex, who had been standing quietly by the door, offered a nod of approval. Daryl smiled faintly, the kind of smile hinting at both relief and resolve. All right then, let's get back to our work. And remember, how we treat people holds more significance than anything we sell. As the employees began to exit the room, Daryl noticed Susan lingering near the door. She approached him hesitantly, her hands nervously intertwined. Mr. Carter, she began, her voice low, I want to express my gratitude for offering me an opportunity to improve. I will not disappoint you. Daryl looked at her for a moment before responding, his voice steady. I hope you mean that, Susan. Actions speak louder than words. But I do believe individuals are capable of change if they are willing to put in the effort. She nodded, her eyes earnest. I am. Daryl watched her depart before turning to Alex. Let's schedule a staff meeting for next week, he said. I want to ensure everyone is clear on expectations going forward. Alex grinned, his respect for Daryl evident. Consider it done, boss. As Daryl stepped back into the main showroom, he glanced around at the cars, their gleaming surfaces reflecting the afternoon light. He considered the amount of work still ahead, but for the first time that day, he felt a sense of optimism. This wasn't solely about managing a dealership, it was about establishing something more significant, an environment where people were judged by their character, not their appearance. And Daryl was prepared to lead the way.